This was me 7 years ago.
I'm starting a new series this week called 7 on Sunday, or SOS for short.
And this is me current day. What the hell happened? 7 years, I guess, really takes a toll on a man. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. I'm feeling quite enlightened today because indeed it's the 7th anniversary of my series 7 on Sunday. And you're probably wondering, John, why did you launch this series May 5th, 2013, the same day as a traditional Mexican holiday? Well, I have no answers for that, and it's also not a Sunday, but I wanted to make sure that I uploaded on the actual anniversary, so 7 on Sunday?
Cinco.
But in all seriousness, thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this show something that I can be proud of. You guys have stuck around, you've watched it evolve over the years, and I appreciate your comments and your views each and every week as you tune in to see what we're going to talk about. Thank you to Hannah for editing and just working with the graphics on this show, making it what it is today, something that I can be truly proud of. And again, thank you guys for just standing by it and somehow making this my longest running show ever. We're gonna do right by SOS, and how do we pay homage to this long running show? Well, we don't recreate the first episode, we do a sequel to 7 albums that you wouldn't expect me to like, but I actually do like or else love. Please help me get this to 777 likes, or maybe even more to help celebrate the 7th anniversary of 7 on Sunday. There's 7s everywhere. 7 is a lucky number, so let's go forward into number 7. Checking in first on this very special episode of 7 on Sunday at number 7 is album 7 Midnight Vultures that released in 1999 by Beck. This is perhaps the grooviest record that Beck has ever released, and it really solidified his place as an experimental artist that wasn't going to stay in one lane. You could argue that Mutations proved that with its alternative country sound that loomed over it, and that is a very defining record for him, but Midnight Vultures is just out there. It's groovy, it's got hints of disco, there's definitely plenty of funk in the mix, also R&B creeping around the edges, and there's definitely some country-tinged sounds that makes it very eclectic, but almost maddening in a very good way. Midnight Vultures came out at the tail end of the 1990s, right before we entered a brand new century, and I would consider this going out on a bang. There's wonky production, there's weird ideas that are brought up, but then again, that's Beck Hansen for you. There's weird segues and tangents within songs like Get Real Paid, and it kind of just boosts your mood in a very strange way. It's music to drive to. Driving around town to tracks like Sex Laws, oh, that's gonna be a badass feeling for you. It's got a great brass section on the track that really infuses a lot of talk about relationships, and indeed this is a very sexually driven album. This is something not only on a track that's as obvious as Sex Laws, but throughout the track list. You're going to hear it in so many of the songs, even like Milk and Honey, which is another one of my top tier favorites. I also have to commend the second track on here, Nicotine and Gravy. You throw that one on, you're driving around town, oh, you're gonna feel like a pimp. Go on, brush your shoulders off.
Tell me would it trouble you if we ended up at the W, Slizzle, Malibu, pineapple juice, and a blunt too. Now what you want?
At number 6, we've got a record that was extremely important not only to Atlanta hip-hop, but to rap at large. It's Trap Music, the 2003 album by rapper T.I. This is a record that I was introduced to because I heard 24s at a birthday party. Somebody was playing that, and I believe Rubber Band Man. And then again, I heard 24s while playing Need for Speed Underground, one of the best games of all time. I don't want to hear any arguments. T.I. does a great job at talking about the actual streets, the come up, the hustle, and now I think trap means something entirely different. It's looked at as an entire genre, but the roots of this genre were actually about trapping, about selling drugs, about the life and the come up, and now we don't see that. We just see the flexing, and not that T.I. doesn't do any of that here, it's just a lot more tasteful, and I feel a lot more conviction behind his bars. Trap music definitely has some of the same issues that I see with other hip-hop albums in the sense that they're too long, they don't know when to chop it down, there's too many tracks, and there's so many songs that I feel just could have been cut in half. They just keep going with unnecessary extra verses, and then the hook rolls back around again. I mean, most of these songs are like 4 minutes plus, and they could have easily just been like 3 to 4. Also, there's some tasteful sampling on this LP, trap music. I just feel that it really pops up. It's not leaned on like a crutch, but still it's used in a pretty interesting way. There's some great tracks here, like the classic T.I. versus T.I.P. I Can't Quit, which really gets abrasive and in your face. I Still Love You is a little bit more emotional, and I appreciate that in the track that comes right after. Let's Get Away is a little bit more nasty in terms of its lyrical content, but still, I'm a sucker for it.
You're such a lovely cup, why don't you fill me up?
Over time, I've seen a lot of people say Grouplove are such a positive band, like they're always giving off such good vibes, and it's like, have you ever seen the title of their debut album? Never Trust a Happy Song. At number 4, we have indeed Grouplove, an alternative band, and they started in the early 2010s. And while I've fallen out of touch with a lot of music from that time period, a lot of it feels dated or else very cheesy, I feel like I'm always going to have fond memories of this particular record. The first 4 songs alone make this album worth hearing because, my god, they are all bangers! They were all released as singles. We have Tongue Tied, which you might know from that clip of Post Malone singing and dancing to it. Also, Itchin' on a Photograph, my personal favorite, Lovely Cup, and the song that started it all for me, Colors. To bring down the mood for just a moment, this album is very personal to me and it brought me joy in a very dark time in my life. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer in August 2011, and this record came out about a month after that, so I found it very uplifting, very positive. Even though some of the subject matter was dark, the songs were just easy to get into. They were so euphoric, they soared with those hooks, so I will always hold a special place for it. And when my mom finally did get past breast cancer, beat it, and hasn't had it come back since then, I can go back to these songs and I just associate them with a good feeling. Yes, I will admit that Never Trust a Happy Song is definitely top heavy. The first 4 songs, like I said, are all singles, all bangers. But past that, it changes directions a little bit. There's a little bit of twang in here, almost a bit of a folky sound in places. It can get old, it's definitely a little bit predictable, but you do have the lazy slow, the cheesy but spirited Love Will Save Your Soul, and the dynamic Closer, Close Your Eyes and Count to 10, all of which I count as pretty solid tunes. It's not an amazing record, but it's one that I can definitely still come back to and feel attached to.
That turns when you're in control, knees were bound instead of ground, it's unshakable.
Number 4, Celldweller's Wish Upon a Black Star. I stumbled onto this album from an alternative press ad in a magazine in 2012. You know, back before they totally sucked. Don't judge me, but I was super into dubstep from 2011 to 2013, and I can still go back to the genre and just dance my ass off and forget all of my cares. But this album really tickled my fancy when it came to combining dubstep with electronic rock and more. There's atmospheric moods in the back half of the record that are a lot more slow moving. It's almost like particles up in space just floating around and you're connecting the dots. But in the first half in particular, I really feel that there's so many strong songs that really just roar to life like a dragon. Clayton defies gravity with some fierce screams, some sensational vocals all around, the warbled electronics, and also loud chugging guitars that blend all of these different genres, and it just sounds like a journey through hyperspace, almost like something that should have fit on the Tron soundtrack. Heavy guitars, blistering beats, and a whole lot more that are actually worth headbanging along to. That's something that doesn't come along every day, but Wish Upon a Black Star definitely scratches that itch.
Life used to be so hard, now everything is easy.
Gotta respect the classics, so at number 3, we have Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. This was their first album with Neil Young, and this album recently turned 50 years old, which is insane. It's almost twice as old as me. This released during the hippie era, and of course there's a song called Woodstock on here. And while politics are definitely popping up on some of the track list, and you can feel that there was tension and infighting within the band on some of the tracks, there's still so many lush harmonies, a wide range of songs that do touch on politics, but also love and standing by your convictions. Fans of the NBC show This Is Us might recognize the song Our House for popping up a couple of times during the show.
Come to me now, Rest your head for just 5 minutes.
That truly is an elegant, touching song that has stood the test of time. It's one of my personal favorites on the album, a very tender vocal performance, earnest guitars there as well. And I feel that every member of the group really brought something to the table, like there's songs from every member that I love. The opening track, Carry On by Stephen Stills, is fantastic. The title track, Deja Vu by David Crosby, is really hard-hitting. I love the lyrical content. Almost Cut My Hair by David Crosby is another one that I count as one of the best on the LP. It's something that just feels like a look in the mirror and talking about the changing tides within oneself. And also, a classic Neil Young moment pops up in the form of Helpless. I love the backing vocals on this track. It really just feels urgent, but also a little bit lost. Many of you have probably heard their protest song, Ohio. I've even talked about it before, but if you're looking for a full-length album to start with, then this Deja Vu should be your go-to. Number 2, Eyre Works by the Dillinger Escape Plan. This is a mathcore, metalcore, post-hardcore experimental band that have done some crazy things over the years. I don't think they've ever put out a bad album, and I'm not typically in love with music of this style, but their manic energy is something that I can't keep my hands away from. So fun story how I accidentally stumbled onto the Dillinger Escape Plan. I was doing a science project in like 07, 08, and I googled Milk Snake, and instead of that, I found the music video for Milk Lizard. Imagine my surprise when the most insane thing musically that I'd ever heard is probably System of a Down, and I click on this and I'm like, holy shit! I didn't find the full album until 2010, the year I graduated high school, but I ended up loving it. The balance between crazy time signatures, manic vocals, and slower moments of atmosphere and calculation reminded me of albums like Underoath's Define, The Great Line. I really appreciated that they were able to let off the gas pedal and really let the music speak for itself, and this album does feel like it's off the rails, but in a way that is also very accessible, if that makes sense. Black Bubblegum is one that I would recommend if you're looking to start off with this album or even this band. It's something that does have more cleans, it definitely still has a very interesting rhythm that switches up multiple times. Fix Your Face opens up the album and it's wild, it's very energetic but also kind of angry. I'm also a big fan of 82588 and Mouth of Ghosts. I feel that that closer has an intensity to it that you just don't often feel from music, a bit of a prog rock touch to it. It's a masterpiece in its own right, and while I don't feel that this album as a whole is totally perfect or anything, it'll always mean a lot to me because it's something that introduced me to other styles of music. This and One of Us Is the Killer are probably my favorite albums from Dillinger, and I'm sure that some of you are very surprised to see me talking about it, but hey, so what? I blew your mind.
My mind rejects frequency. It started craziness to me. Is it a soul or fever?
And number 1, atop the mountain of albums that you wouldn't expect me to love, but I actually do, is Hissing Fauna, Are You the Destroyer by Of Montreal. Shout out to my friend Mark, also he makes music under the name Fully Involved. I will leave a link for that down below. Go check it out and show him some love. He got me into this album. He was preparing for their album All at Gloom in 2015, and he passed this off my way. And I didn't expect to love it at all, but wow, all these years later, here it is. There's so many shifts and oddities in the music. It's a great indie rock experience, but also there's so much passion in the form of glam rock and beyond psychedelia. You can see the transformation into this glam rock alter ego. He calls himself Georgie Fruit as he performs live. The transformation takes place on The Past is a Grotesque Animal, and that song is 12 minutes long. It's definitely a journey, but you can see how big of a turning point in this album it is. Kevin Barnes pretty much is Of Montreal. He does all the writing, and while there is a touring band, people that help him with the music sometimes, this is his baby. Most of their fans would definitely recognize that, and I feel that this album is his magnum opus. And while there's other albums that are fantastic like Sunlandic Twins and Skeletal Lamping, I feel that this one just stands like leagues above the majority of the material, especially the stuff that came out during the 2010s. Much of the writing on Hissing Fauna is much more personal than what he'd been putting out up to that point. He credits a lot of the change to him finally being medicated, being put on something for his depression. It helped him see things in a different light, and that really shows on the album. Personal favorites for me include Suffer for Fashion, the opening track, which is so bright. Kato is a Pun, which downtunes, but also gets really wild. Bunny Ain't No Kind of Writer in the second half, which kind of drops your jaw a little bit, along with She's a Rejecter. Promethean Curse is another top favorite for me, because wow, that song is just an outlandish move in some ways, but also it totally works. Grenaldic Edit is another fascinating one, and A Sentence of Sorts in Kongsvinger? I could never say that one correctly, but my god, if that isn't one of the best uses of dark lyrics but bright instrumentation that I've ever seen. That draws us to a close on this very special episode of 7 on Sunday. 7 years later, this show is actually still running. It almost didn't make it off the ground because there were very few episodes between 2013 when it launched to 2016, but starting in May of that year, I just fully relaunched it, made it weekly, and we've run with it from there. What was the first episode of SOS that you guys ever saw? Let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to know what your hopping on board point was with this series. Don't forget to drop a like on the video while you're here, and if you do celebrate Cinco de Mayo, well, have a drink for me, have a margarita. I wish I could go out and get one, but we're staying inside to respect the rules of quarantining. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you for 7 years of SOS, couple of recent SOS episodes right here, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.